He is also one of those people who actually is involved a lot in the business community, including his church. And he also does have a similar event to the one that we have right now. It's called the Opportunity Coalition. And I would actually urge, and from now on you will see us pass some information about it, because we would like to partner with them so we have more access to the business community. But I would like you all to join me in welcoming Brian Watson.
Good evening. I'm glad that all of you are here tonight. My guess is you could be somewhere else, but for some reason you decided to be here. I want to thank Regis University for hosting us all here tonight, and I want to thank Dr. Powanga as well for specifically inviting me. How many of you have or are involved in commercial real estate in some capacity? Come on, raise your hand a little harder than that. Okay. Anyone else? How many would like to potentially be involved with commercial real estate? How many of you have no idea why you're here tonight, but somebody drug you along and you said, you know what, I might as well come? Anyone? Okay, good. At least be honest. Let's be honest here. Well, my name is Brian Watson, and I want to talk to you about commercial real estate. And let me forewarn you that I'm an entrepreneur. So my worldview is going out and creating something out of nothing, most times. But I want to talk to you about 4 ways to be involved with commercial real estate and tie that into my personal history. You see, I grew up on a small town on the western slope of Colorado of Olathe. Anyone know where Olathe is? Pretty small. When you drive through, you blink, you miss Olathe. And my parents were entrepreneurs. And see, that's what we discussed around the dinner table at night. So I had no choice but to go out and become an entrepreneur. My parents were involved in construction and development. One of their first projects they ever built was a campground, hunting preserve, and riding stable that they built out of nothing, and they sold it off, and for many, many years, a check showed up in the mail every month because they carried back the paper. It wasn't a big check, but it was a check. No matter where they were, no matter what they were doing, a check showed up in the mail. Would anybody like to have a check show up in the mail every month? I would hope so. My dad was involved with construction, and so I learned real estate literally from the ground up, from swinging a hammer and to laying bricks. And I got to see the value of creating a sense of place. And that really resonated with me as a young man. So I went up to CU Boulder, a little school up the street, and I got a degree in real estate. It was a fledgling program at the time, but they had people like myself come in and talk about what they do. And so the first thing that you can become is be involved with construction and development, as my family was. The second thing that you could become is an esteemed professor, like Dr. Powanga if you wanted to, and to teach other people. But after leaving CU and getting a good education, I went out and became a commercial real estate broker. And I did that for 3 primary reasons. 1, to learn the business, to meet some of the right people, networking, as you were saying. And 3, to make a little bit of money, because I had to put myself through college, and Lord knows I needed a little bit of money at that time. And that environment of being a commercial real estate broker is a phenomenal environment, and I encourage anyone who's interested to look at pursuing it. You see, every day you have to get up, you have to go out and hunt, and you have to go out and kill. Pretty tough environment. Now, for those that don't know about commercial real estate brokers, there's about 20,000, a little over 20,000 people who have a real estate brokerage license in Colorado alone. The majority of those individuals are practicing residential brokerage. There's only about 700 people in all of Denver Metro that focus on commercial. So think about, just for a second, as you're driving up and down different streets, think about all the square footage for retail, office, industrial, hospitality, and there's 700 people, plus or minus, that are doing the majority of the deals. Pretty interesting. Those 700 people, the majority of them are all college educated. Unlike the residential side, they may or may not have a college degree. Not that that is necessary for success. But the majority of the people are very sophisticated and have a college education. My guess is a lot of the same people that are in this room. Those 700 The old 90-10 rule, I would say, is probably a 95-5 rule in commercial real estate. There's probably 5% of the people that are going out and doing the majority of the deals. For any of those who might be motivated by an income, I'll just give you an idea. This building right here, my guess is probably about 100,000 square feet, plus or minus. So, as a broker in Denver, you have to decide what kind of broker are you going to be. Are you going to represent a landlord like myself, and in doing that you're marketing their property for sale or lease? Or are you going to represent a tenant or a buyer, and you're looking out there for that different product for them? In doing that, you have to decide what kind of broker you're going to be. Are you going to focus on industrial, office, retail, hospitality, or land? And the industry pretty much forces you to pick what kind of broker you're going to be. But let's just assume for a moment that you're a tenant rep broker, and you identify the building that we're in, and it's not owned by Regis, it's available for lease, and you bring this tenant and you negotiate the deal. As a broker, you have to be everything from part architect to negotiator to babysitter, and also have an understanding of the law and everything in between. Your potential payday for a building like this is landlords will pay you about $1 a square foot per year for that tenancy up to 10 years. So let's look at this building for a moment. You have the opportunity to represent a tenant that leases this building for 10 years. You could potentially get paid $1 million for one lease. Half that money goes to your company that you work for, then you split with your team, and then you split with the government. But at the end of the day, it's a very good payday if that's something that you're motivated for. But it is extremely competitive, very competitive. So I recommend anyone who wants to learn about it, you can reach out to me. But after being a broker for a number of years and thriving in that environment, enjoying it, I always wanted to have my own company. So I came home to my wife and I said, honey, we're going to take a step backward for hopefully a giant leap forward. But don't worry, I'm going to leave a few $100 in a side account that if worse comes to worse, we'll go down to Mexico for a couple of weeks, drink some tequila, and then come back and I can always become a broker again. And so we launched our company, North Star Commercial Partners, 15 years ago. At North Star, we focus on buying vacant buildings. And I know for some bankers and maybe for some professors in here, why in the world would you want to go buy a vacant building without income? Well, see, real estate by nature is an inflexible animal. I can't really pick up this building that we're in today and move it down the street or maybe to another state. It's kind of in its location. I believe you create flexibility through your basis. The lower the basis you have in a property that you've paid for, the more decisions you have at your disposal. You can wait longer for a deal. You can cut a better deal than the next person. So 90% of what we buy is completely vacant. And a number of years ago, and I want to encourage each of you here tonight to think about what are your personal passions. Everybody has a passion. There's all these naysayers and even in your mind telling you no or saying you can't do it. But what are your passions? If you could do anything you wanted to do, what would that be? And why can't you do it? See, a number of years ago, I decided that my passions were creating jobs and opportunity and empowering people. My platform happened to be commercial real estate. So how can a commercial real estate guy do those other things? Well, every building we buy, we take an asset that people have overlooked, a diamond in the rough, they've given up on. It may be an environmentally impacted asset. It may be an asset with blight. And we go in and we buy those assets. We create construction jobs improving those assets. And then we get companies to locate in them to create jobs and opportunity. Those are our passions. And I'll submit to each of you that if you truly pursue your passions, you'll never work another day in your life. You say work is not always fun, nor necessarily should it be. Sometimes it's just a necessity. But if you truly are doing what you love, you look forward, you get the opportunity to go to work. You don't have to go to work. Big mindset change and big difference. So I encourage you to pursue that. So we own a few million square feet around the country. It's a private capital-based company. I invest my own money in every single deal. I didn't come from money. I came from a family that taught me about blessings and hard work. And then we bring in private and institutional capital partners to co-invest alongside of us. The other 10% or so of what we do are working with corporations. As they're buying and selling each other, there's always real estate available. So as an example, Grease Monkey, probably seen Grease Monkey on the street, we have a corporate relationship with them. As they buy and sell different companies around the country, we'll come in and buy the real estate so they don't have to get in the chain of title. And they'll give us a long-term lease back for that property. And those, are risk-adjusted returns that we do there. But North Star has taken another evolution in its growth, going back to connecting your passions with your profession. Bless you. And so we said, where else can we help? And so being an entrepreneur, we went out and bought the Innovation Pavilion down in the Tech Center. Is anybody familiar with the Innovation Pavilion building? Anyone? So, if you don't know about the Innovation Pavilion building, it was a lender-owned property, about 80,000 square feet. An Innovation Pavilion was about ready to be kicked out on the street because it was a lender-owned property. So we went in and bought that building. And in the Innovation Pavilion, over 80 companies have been created in the last year and a half. The youngest entrepreneur is in middle school. The oldest entrepreneur is in his 80s, and everything in between. So I think in this room here, we have people between 5 and 80. Anyone outside that range? You can do it too. There's no reason you can't do it. And you think about what that one company will do and the ripple effect that it will have in the community. So we're out now creating different business incubators in areas throughout the entire state. Through that process, we met some gentlemen from the African community. For 7 years, they had hoped to have their own building where they could have a cultural center so people could learn about Africa, where they could encourage entrepreneurship. These are immigrants who came to this country and sacrificed everything in leaving their families behind, pursuing the American dream. And I would submit to you that the American dream is alive and well, but sometimes we have to come alongside and fan the flames a little bit. And so we identified a building for them on East Colfax, a completely vacant, dilapidated building. I bought it for 20 bucks a square foot, which is about 10% of its replacement cost value. And we funded it, and now they're improving that building, and in 30 or 45 days, you'll be able to go to the Afric Mall. And you'll be able to walk into their food court and try food from the Ivory Coast or Ethiopia or Ghana. You'll be able to see a business incubator upstairs helping to fuel the dreams of young Africans who want to go out and pursue that American dream. And you'll see a cultural center. So I encourage you to check that out. Pretty interesting. The other thing that we have just launched is an education fund. To me, education is one of the civil rights issues of our day in America. And education and educating our populace is directly tied to things like freedom, liberty, and opportunity. See, if we take it for granted, this way of life we have will be taken away from us. I've got the opportunity to travel a good part of the world. And I tell people, no matter what kind of day you're having, and we all have those tough days, you have won the historical lottery to live where and when and how you live today. Each of you in this room, whatever your personal circumstance is right now, you live better than kings and queens of antiquity. There's no question. Think about it for a second. Go into a grocery store. Look what's available. Now, is it tough? Do we all got to work hard? Absolutely. But there's tremendous opportunity. And education to me is part of that. So we have launched a new fund to go out and buy vacant office, industrial, and retail buildings for charter schools. K through 12 education. You see, the wealthy in our country, they already have educational choice and educational options. They can move to the school district that they want, or they can go and afford private school if they want, or a faith-based school, or anything in between. Everybody else is caught in the current system. We need to empower people with choice. Choice for the best environment to send their kid where they're going to thrive. I have 3 children. Each of them is completely different. I may want to send them to a faith-based school. I may want to send them to an art school. but I should be able to sit down with that child and have that choice. So right now, we're working with 10 different charter schools to buy these vacant buildings at sub 30 or 40% of replacement costs, and to have them occupy the buildings to create that educational choice. One of the buildings is in Montbello. The public schools, unfortunately, in and around this particular building, have an F rating. I didn't create that rating. That's how they're rated. So if you happen to live in that zip code, your choice is to send your kid to one of those schools. But see, there's a charter school there of a woman who used to work at Google, Academy 360, who's having a phenomenal impact in that community. So we're buying a 60,000 foot office building, square foot office building, for 15% of replacement cost, and allowing that school to thrive and grow in there. We're also going to take part of the profits from that, and we're going to donate to scholarships for K through 12 education, for teacher and administration training. And so why do I tell you all this? I tell you this because each of you have a sphere of influence. Each of you have a job. Each of you have a dream. Figure out how not only you can create the life that you want, but how you can benefit others. We were talking a little bit before this event. I think oftentimes when people sit down in business across from the table from somebody, they're trying to figure out, how can I get the best deal from you? How can I better myself? And I want to submit to each of you, whether you're in your personal interactions or in business, figure out how you can contribute across the table. Because when you do that, great things happen. And I think it comes back to you in spades. Dr. Powanga mentioned the Opportunity Coalition. The Opportunity Coalition I founded as a nonprofit, and we bring in a speaker of influence each month from around the state of Colorado. And they share their golden nuggets of wisdom, so you can apply that to your own life and say, what can I do with that? It's also a phenomenal networking event. Last month we had CU President Bruce Benson. We have Jake Jabs coming in December. We have Linda Childers, head of the Daniels Fund, coming in January. We donate half of the ticket cost to nonprofits in and around the city that are making a positive impact. So think about coming to that. If you want to come and check it out, let me know personally, and we'll comp you, and you can just check it out and see if it's something that interests you. You don't have to be a member, and there's no, background checks or anything like that. You just come to the event. But I'd encourage you to check that out. It's very interesting. I also do a bi-weekly podcast. It's on iTunes. It's for free. And I interview influential people from around the world. And in 20 minutes on your way to work or wherever you're going, you can get in the mind of some amazing people and to see what drives them and how you can apply that impact in your own life. Lastly, the commercial real estate market in general. So we all were hit by the 2008 market, and it was an interesting time. I didn't get an MBA from an institution, but I definitely got an MBA from the market in terms of how hard we were hit. Because again, we're buying vacant buildings. So when you buy a vacant building, the risk is that you have the worst economy since the Great Depression, and it's pretty hard to fill those buildings at the end of the day. But you know what? I loved every minute of it. And I would encourage you that no matter what your challenges in life, to embrace it. In fact, I'd recommend you give it an big old bear hug. Why not? And learn from it. Because we're all going to go through stuff. The question is, did you learn anything when you went through that stuff? And how are you going to apply it the next go round? So just think about that. In Denver specifically, we're one of the top economies right now in the country. The industrial market was one of the least hit product types in the whole market. Office and retail and land, they've all come back with a vengeance. It's interesting to see what will happen in Colorado over the next few years. There's about 50,000 people a year coming into our state. And so I think that the opportunities are boundless here, but also in other areas around the country. I also want to let you know that we were just talking a little bit before about trying to help other entrepreneurs and nonprofits. One of the things that we try to do in each one of our buildings is to donate space to nonprofits who are trying to make a positive difference, and also to entrepreneurs who are just getting started. Give people a little bit of space, because you know what? Occupancy costs are usually your second or third highest cost item in any company or corporate structure. So if you don't get that right, it can come back to haunt you. Most recently, just last week, we had the opportunity to donate 60,000 square feet of space to the Marines for their Toys for Tots program. These people are doing this on their own accord, and they're collecting toys and giving it to people who are in need during the holiday season. So if you want to participate in something like that with us, we'd love to work alongside of you. Because every single day, there's some great people in the world doing some wonderful things. And it's fun to be a part of it. So with that, do you have any questions? Yes?
Question. You were talking.
Would you like to come and join us?
Okay, yes.
Yeah. So I have a question. So you talked about very generously giving space to nonprofits and to startup entrepreneurs, which is phenomenal. So I was back east, and in New York City, there's a building, a commercial, I think it's actually residential, I apologize, that's getting a lot of flack because they have, it's huge, I don't want to say it's houses, 500 different apartments. And they've set aside some apartments to be rent controlled and low income. But they're making the folks that live in those apartments go in a separate door. I'd just love your opinion, and if you've heard of this.
Absolutely. Well, let me first take a step back. As it relates to how that space is given, I believe in the free market. So I don't believe in a government coming in and saying that I have to give that space away. You have to let the private sector give on their own accord. Otherwise, you take away the blessing of the giving and even the impetus for the giving if it's something that has to be done. So going back to your second part of the question.
And I apologize that I said rent control because I honestly don't think it's dictated by the city of New York. This was the developer who did it. So I shouldn't have said rent control.
Yeah.
Lower, less expensive than the going rate in New York City.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear on that
Yep,
same point
perfect,
at the end of
yep.
the day, because I do believe in the private sector, and I do believe the private sector gives a tremendous amount,
Yep.
but sometimes they're not allowed to be given the opportunity to do so. With regards to the separate door, I think that that's sad, frankly. You know, to me, it doesn't matter your economic station in life. It doesn't matter the color of your skin or your sex, and I truly mean that. Every person has a dream and wants to achieve an opportunity. And our job is to come alongside and to see that blossom and flourish. You know, high tides raise all boats, right? And the more that we divide in our country and separate people and put them against each other, it breaks my heart. Because to me, that is not the American way. And so I would have one big door and have everybody come in on the same carpet. Any other questions? No?
Well, what are the lessons that you learned? You talked about the 2008 economic crisis and how you got an MBA from. So let's see some of the lessons that what are the takeaways that now you are able to use in future
Yeah.
to help you with your future planning?
Well, I would say that I wouldn't do anything different other than buy a building maybe in Memphis, Tennessee. It was the worst hit economy in the country, and we had a little bit of a bloodbath there with an asset. But, you know, I think that the lessons I learned is that it truly is a relationship business. And yes, did we take our nicks down economy and dealing with some lenders? We did. And it all comes downhill. I mean, this is at the time when capitalism itself was up for discussion in the United States of America. I don't know if you remember some of the articles of, you know, is capitalism a model we should still follow in our country? I didn't know that was up for discussion at the end of the day. That's what made this country great. It's the most empowering, people-oriented system on the planet that has revolutionized things. So I learned that it was a relationship business, and a lot of lenders we had to sit down with and say, you know what, we're partners, but here's what we'll give you. I can't pay you all the money you need right now, but I give to you my character, that I will do everything I can within legal means to make this asset right. Because we will get out of this economy. It may not be when we all thought it was going to be, and we will pay you every dime that you're owed. But unfortunately, government regulators came in and things like that, and they had no choice but to do certain things. And so it's really a shame. So one, relationships. Two, just to be very focused on what you do. What you'll see as each of you go out into the world and your different professions is that, you know, if you open your eyes and you open your mind, there's tremendous opportunity out there. But you know what? We can't do everything, but we can do one thing or a few things. And so figure out what it is that you do well and just stay focused on that. Be open to other opportunities, but be focused. And for us, you know, we started buying some assets in some other areas and some different product types, and you know, looking back, it's probably something we shouldn't have done. The last thing I would say is that focus on your team. And when I say your team, that may be your spouse or significant other, your family unit, or the people you work with. See, I was very blessed in the down economy to have a team that would walk through fire with us and back. And for that, I wouldn't give that up for the world. And every one of those people are employed to this day, and they're very well compensated. But at times, everybody else got a paycheck before me. And that's the negative side of being an entrepreneur. But you have to take care of your people first. Yes?
So you had mentioned some bank loans that you had. What are some other ways that you've been able to raise capital?
So we're mainly private capital based. We do bring in institutional capital partners as well. We're trying to drive 25% plus IRRs to our capital partners. So whereas most REITs or institutions might be happy with a 10, 12, 14, 15% return, we're trying to drive 25% plus returns on our vacant assets. So as I said, co-invest in every single deal. Some assets in the down economy, for instance, I bought all of the vacant Albertsons grocery stores on the Front Range of Colorado when Albertsons pulled up stakes. I paid $9.25 a square foot to buy them. Replacement cost is $90 to $100 a square foot plus. During the time, all lenders were on the sidelines. They were shuffling papers and trying to look busy. And and God bless them, they were trying to make it through themselves and trying to keep their own jobs. So during that time, we had to pay all cash. And it was hard. I mean, going out to do a capital raise, it was like hearing crickets, out there because nobody was willing to invest. But we persevered and we focused and we used cash. Now leverage has come back with a vengeance. Sadly, I don't think that a lot of people learned their lesson from the down economy. So, we usually lever somewhere between 50 to 70%. Both some of the loan programs, but more importantly, the cap rates that are out there. There's just so much capital in the marketplace looking for a home that it's very concerning. Multifamily, for instance, you'll hear 4 and 5 caps on multifamily. I just met with the head of GE Capital this week. He came into Denver, and they're anxiously looking for deals. Denver has moved from a 3rd-tier city to a 2nd-tier city to a top-tier city in terms of where people want to invest. And sadly, not to be a conspiracy theorist or anything, but all this turmoil that goes on in the world, ISIS and different political regimes, etc., that makes America even more and more desirable for investment. So there's a tremendous amount of money roiling in from international communities, and they want to have a home here. I mean, look what just happened with the Waldorf Astoria. Sold for $2 billion. $2 billion. And what are they probably going to do with it? Turn it into condos. And if you're in China and you're trying to get money out of the country because of a political regime, and you're using EB5 or whatever the money program might be at the day, and to have a piece of the Waldorf Astoria in New York, they'll probably do well with it. But think about that, $2 billion for one hotel.
Going back to Brian, I think you've done very well for yourself, and you didn't come from, you were not born with a silver spoon, so to speak, or in this case, a golden spoon. But what really kept you going? I mean, there are times when you are so frustrated. You see things are not going your way, and then where were you getting the energy to move forward?
Well, going back to your first comment about the silver spoon, no, I was not. My family gave me some good lessons, and a mantra in my life has been to do well by doing good, whatever that means in your own life. I personally, in my world, operate in 3 primary buckets. There's my business bucket, which I just told you about, and we own some other companies in addition. We get to employ about 150 people in Colorado. There's the philanthropy bucket and giving back, and there's a political bucket. I'm always kind of cross-pollinating. But all 3 of those buckets sit on one foundation, and for me, that's faith. And I personally don't put stock in things. See, things come and go. Money comes and goes. Your relationships, faith, love, those are things that are important. Those are bedrock items. I'm not preaching to anybody here, but I would figure out what are those important things for you and stay focused on them. And to understand as you go through the gauntlet of life, you're going to take nicks. You might lose a limb. You might lose several limbs, I don't know, depending on the economy. But at the end of the day, stay focused and make sure you understand what your priorities are. And when you do, that is such an empowering thing for you. Because people can take things from you, they can say things about you, economies can change, but it doesn't change who you are and what your goals are. I know that sounds a little esoteric and maybe a little weird, but each of us has those things that I encourage you to never let go of them. And there are some very dark times. I mean, my wife and I, she's an attorney by trade, she works at our company, and we would be working 20 plus hours a day in the down economy. Weekends, nights. We were sending checks out just to keep things afloat, keep people employed. It was like a plane going down the runway, right? And I was trying to pull back on that lever to get that plane to lift off the ground. And none of us thought the economy was going to be down in the tank for 18 months. And the tree line was coming closer and closer to that plane, and I kept pulling with white knuckles. And you have to come to the realization that you can only do so much. Do your best. And walk away with the confidence and the resolve to know that you did it all, you put it on the field. And even if you came up short, you did more than most people do in their lifetime, which is try. Most people never try. I'd encourage you to try. Yes?
When you transitioned from commercial brokerage, who was it that was most influential in you deciding to make that big leap to becoming a developer? Because that's a huge risk on your part, and then you have to have some capital behind you and some clients to actually drive that. And is there one source or one influential person that you went to, or a group of people as a mentor that really helped you make that transition from the brokerage to the developer and entrepreneur experience?
Yeah. I would say that there are many, and I got my mentors from a few different sources. One, books, read a lot. Two, people that are just out doing something. And I will literally fly around the country if I can, or drive, or whatever I need to go spend time with somebody to get their golden nuggets of wisdom. You see, I would much rather have somebody's knowledge than their money. Money comes and goes, right? Knowledge stays with you. So I would seek out people in your world, whatever that looks like, and just sit down and talk to them. Most people think that they want a meeting for one or two things. You want a job, or you want money from them, right? But if you go to somebody with your hat in hand and say, you know what, I just want to garner your wisdom. I want to hear your experience. Most people would be happy to share their experience with you, just as me coming here tonight. And so yes, there were a few people. Partly it was my parents, being entrepreneurs. I saw that, and I like to do things like hunt and fish and ride bikes and all the other wonderful things. And I thought, you know what, for the lifestyle that I wanted, in terms of there's no ceiling, but there's also no floor. I personally thrive in that environment. Most other people would say, yeah, not so much. I kind of like to have a paycheck every 2 weeks, and that's fine. That's not a problem, and that's a wonderful thing. But being an entrepreneur, you better understand, there is no ceiling, limitless opportunity. I wake up in the morning and I'm writing 3 things down of what I want to change in my company, and by noon, those things are put into practice. Pretty fun, right? Nobody's telling me I can't do it. But guess what? There's no floor. And everybody gets paid in your organization before you do, regardless of the economy. So, everybody likes the trappings of success of maybe being an entrepreneur or a business owner or this or that or investor. But, for everything gained, there's something lost. And you have to decide in your own life, what does that look like for you? Let me tell you 4 rules about money, which I'm sure you know about and which I would submit as a business owner. First of all, money will go where it's wanted. Second, it will go where it's respected. Third, it will flow to where the highest opportunity is. And fourth, it will flow to where it's safe. Weighing all those things. There's a wonderful book, one of my favorites, I'd recommend to all of you, called The Mystery of Capital by Hernando de Soto. De Soto is a Peruvian economist, was considered one of the most 100 influential people in the world. And he asked a question: why is it that certain cultures and countries have more money than others? Is it their natural resources? Is it the Puritan work ethic? What is it? And he boils it down, in America specifically, to the legal system. Specifically, property rights, which a lot of countries do not have. and you think about the economic boom that America has been to the world. I say to people, take America off the world stage for just one moment. America never existed. And what do you have? I would submit to you that you have a culture and a world that doesn't necessarily honor women, honor property rights, honor freedom and opportunity the way America has. We are a social experiment unlike any other. And so though I appreciate what you're saying, those companies would gladly bring in their money if those 4 rules of money were met. We already have one of them, a pretty amazing one. Safety through our legal system. We decry the legal system, attorneys and bogging us down in deals and all this, but you know what? Our legal system is amazing. The concept of bankruptcy in America, where you can lose everything and not go to debtor's prison and still create opportunity, it's amazing. So we have safety. But you know what? I would submit that some of the rules and regulations of our government do not respect that money and do not create the opportunity for that money in this country. You take a concept like the fair tax, you may agree or disagree, and I'm sure you and I can have a fun discussion about that. If you applied the fair tax in the United States of America, money would roil in from around the world like you have never seen, and your cost of capital would go down even more. But instead, we penalize a lot of that capital. So I would submit to you, though I respect your position, that we live in a free country, and that those corporations should be allowed to invest wherever, whenever, and however they want to. And they should be able to reap the rewards, and they should be able to reap the consequences, the negative side. But for us to force them to bring that money back into this country, that is not the American way. So you get to encourage people in a few ways, right? You can force them to do it because you're going to penalize them or you're going to hurt them, or you can encourage them to bring it back. We should be in the business of encouraging our companies and our people, not penalizing them and holding them back. Sorry, that's one of my topics that makes my blood boil just a tad. Any other questions?
Okay, we'll have the, oh.
Yes, I was just going to ask you, what other books would you recommend that have been influential for you?
Wow, there's so...
It's a long list.
There's so many, but I would encourage you to look at everything that you put into your body, whether food or information, is also what you're going to put out, right? Our parents probably told that to us, maybe when we eat too many French fries or whatever it might be, but take reading as an opportunity to get in the minds of some wonderful people. I have a website, brianwatson.us. Everything from the Opportunity Coalition to my foundation to our different giving, all of that's in one spot. We also do the different interviews and radio hosting things, and also list different books and things like that that we have, and you can look at that. But there's so many, and for me, I try to balance it between entrepreneurial success stories, some faith-based reading, and just some general fun reading as well. But every opportunity. Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, is one of the best written books of all time. Anyone know who Ayn Rand is? Yeah, thank you. So she came from Russia in the early 1900s. And she saw what the whole experiment of communism and taking away from people and redistributing of wealth really looked like. All in the name of good, wonderful bills that make you feel warm and fuzzy. But it's a government telling you what you need to do and how you need to live. That is not empowering of the human spirit. And the Atlas Shrugged, phenomenal, phenomenal book. Literally one of the best written books of all time. It's 1,300 pages, so be prepared for it, but it's a great book. Well, anyone else?
Do you have any question there? No?
No?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.